Did you have a good weekend? I really hope you did. But was it ruined a little bit, in part, by an overwhelming sense of dread, an inescapable anxiety that maybe you couldn't even put your finger on? Why do I feel this way? Why is this ruining my weekend and ruining my time to relax? It may just be the Sunday Scaries. Now, I used to think it was just me, that I was the only one that every Sunday this crept up, or even sometimes worse, it crept up. By the time I got home on Friday, I was already dreading going to work on Monday. But it's not just me, especially as evidenced by the number of comments I get on my other videos from you guys that talk about the Sunday Scaries. In fact, one I got today alone said it's the mental equivalent of being curled up in the fetal position. So in today's video, we're going to unpack what the Sunday Scaries are, and I want to hear from you, so be sure to let me know what you guys deal with in the comments below. But we're going to unpack what the Sunday Scaries are. We're going to talk about why they occur, and then we're going to talk about a little bit of ways you can kind of counterbalance it and maybe escape them so you can get the rest you need and enjoy your life outside of work. So I remember in a few roles I had, this was more so than usual, that I would get just depressed. I would actually just, I remember I would sit at the couch watching TV and I would just kind of stare off into space. People would ask me, Rob, what's wrong? Why are you down? And either I didn't want to deal with it and articulate it because that kind of made it real, or I actually didn't know in some cases that I was kind of down and what was the cause of it. I just knew that I was like disengaging from what was going on around me, and it was becoming a real problem. In some ways I dealt with it were not healthy, and I do not recommend. Beer was one of them. Wine was another one. And it was a way for me to escape. Now, we'll get to that in just a minute about different ways you can kind of escape the Sunday Scaries. All right, so tell me if this sounds familiar. So we're going to define Sunday Scaries, right? It's that creeping anxiety that gets worse almost by the second over the weekend about the week ahead. Your body's at home, but your brain is already on hyperdrive worrying about what you've got going on this coming week. Sometimes you're going to have trouble relaxing. You're doom scrolling just to get your mind focused on something else. Your sleep. Now, I had a big problem with this one. Sleep was elusive, and it actually made everything worse because I couldn't turn my brain off. And then I would worry. Tell me if this sounds familiar. I was not getting the sleep, and then I'd worry about the fact that I wasn't getting sleep and how much tired I was going to be in the morning, which would make it more difficult to deal with the shit I had to deal with on Monday. Does that make sense? I think some of you can relate. Let me know in the comments. The issue I was worried about, or the issue I dreaded most, actually became worse with the lack of sleep. And then I would be super irritable. I'd be stressed. I'd be distant, all these types of things. And it shows up different for everybody. It takes away from that precious time we have with the people we care about, or just doing something that actually fills our bucket that's outside of work, which is so important because that prepares us to do a great job on Monday morning. So if you're nodding right now, I don't know if this surprises you, but studies have shown that most working adults deal with this in some capacity. So if nothing else you get out of this video, know that you're not alone. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why this happens. And the first one I was totally guilty of. I'm like the king of procrastination. Why do something today when I can put it off tomorrow? It's kind of been my internal mantra. It would always bite me in the ass. It's causing 90% of my anxiety was the fact that it was all these unfinished tasks or things that I didn't do in preparation for the week to come. You know, the other thing was actually a downstream implication of that, right? Was dealing with my boss. I've had amazing bosses over my career. However, there was a couple of them that were a little bit of a nightmare, a little bit of a micromanager, right? And so the fact that I didn't do something in preparation for the following week was compounded by the fact that I knew I'd have to deal with a boss or a toxic coworker or whatever the case may be. And that caused actually compounding anxiety, which made my whole weekend even worse. If you're not happy with your job, or your career goals, that could in and of itself be a demotivator or a source of anxiety or dread, right? You're going into your job and you're like, hey, this doesn't fulfill me. This doesn't fill my bucket. It's not where I want to be. And frankly, I dread going in to deal with people. I dread the work because it doesn't get me anywhere. It's not something I want to do with my life. And then this one is, I think, a lot of people, especially in corporate America, where we're all tied to our phones constantly, is that you have that pressure to be on. You know, you hear your phone vibrate. You're like, oh, I should look at that. And then you get stressed and distracted because it's still vibrating. And you know, okay, if I deal with it now, that cuts into my weekend, but maybe it'll make for a smoother Monday. Okay, I get that, but it's still cutting into your weekend. Especially when you see your other coworkers doing it, the ones that are deemed high performers, right? That kind of, you know, those brown nosers that kiss ass all the time. They're on all the time. They're answering everything. And that's what sometimes gets rewarded from our bosses, right? So it seems like the only people that don't understand what Sunday Scaries are my dog and my dad who's retired. Okay, so how do you manage this? First of all, I think the one thing I did well, I admit I was not consistent about this. So what I would do is carve out time on my calendar on Friday afternoons to get everything I needed to get done in preparation for Monday done on Friday, so I didn't have to think about it anymore over the weekends. Schedule something fun on Sundays that just fills your bucket, that, you know, associates good stuff with Sundays. Maybe it's brunch, maybe it's a movie out. For me, it was woodworking, right? I busted out my power tools and got out in the garage and started building something. I got my mind focused on something I liked. I liked the creativity. So it got my mind off of what was weighing me down, what was giving me that source of dread. This is a big one, boundary setting. It is so important. And you may have to have a conversation with your boss, right? You say, look, from 6 p.m. on Friday to 7 a.m. on Monday, unless it's an emergency, I'm not going to be looking at my phone. Setting those boundaries, and again, it may require a conversation with your boss so you guys are on the same page and it doesn't cause additional friction, which would then cause more of the Sunday Scaries. Somebody else gave me this idea, a coach I had, was reframing Monday, right? Starting your day with going to the gym, having coffee with somebody in the office that really fills your bucket, those types of things will really change the way your brain thinks about Monday. And hopefully will be like, hey, I'm looking forward. I'm going to have coffee with Bill on Monday morning. And I know that's going to set me start off my week on the right foot. So hopefully it'll balance out the stuff that causes you dread with the stuff that causes you to have a positive mindset. I love a good checklist. Matter of fact, I will do something and then write it on my checklist just so I can check it off. And I know I'm not alone in this. My best friend does it too, but it gives me a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement. So if you start your Mondays with some quick wins, some easy tasks, that will kind of put the wind at your back for the day to deal with that stuff that may be more stressful or more challenging throughout your day. If you are constantly doing all the stuff we've talked about today and the Sunday Scaries are still there, maybe it's not you. Maybe it's the job. And maybe you need to think about, hey, is this the right role for me? Is this the right company for me? Am I under the right boss that is actually nurturing and developing me to get to help me on my career goals, right? You need to ask yourself some of those tough questions. And I don't want to sit here and go, okay, if you don't like it, just go get another job. Yeah. Essentially, that could be an answer, but it's not always the answer, right? Maybe it's having that conversation with your boss and say, look, I'm a good performer on your team. I like the company, but this job is really not fulfilling. Can we talk about some other roles that might be a good fit for me? So take control of that. I always say, focus on what you can control. And if you really want to talk about your career, and if the job you're in is not the be all end all job you were looking for, go have a conversation with your boss. And I'm going to even say, I know I will have some naysayers, and I know I will hear, Rob, HR is the enemy. But hear me out. You can go sit down with your HR person and have a career conversation. Maybe they have other ideas of how you can navigate the company you're in, right? HR is not always the enemy. I promise. This could bear some fruit, right? Here's the other thing. HR people talk to one another, right? So if, HR person Bob over here has a conversation with you and knows that you have aspirations to go over here on this other team, guess what? Bob goes, talks to that HR person and kind of puts those wheels in motion. All of those little moments actually help grease the wheels for you to get to maybe the new team you want, or the new role you want, or the promotion you want. So I just had to do a quick video on the Sunday Scaries today because it comes up so often in the comments of my videos. And I know that is just a tiny example of what people actually are dealing with. It is a serious thing. It can lead to depression, to mental health challenges. So if you are struggling with that, and if the Sunday Scaries are a component of that, I would encourage you, reach out to your employer's employee assistance program. They will connect you with a counselor who can talk to you confidentially about what you're going through and hopefully help you through, therapy, kind of get in a better mindset and get in before you get into that depression state or whatever else you're dealing with. So I highly recommend EAP. I talk about it in most of my videos. And again, I will underline, it is confidential. They do not report back to your employer what you say to them. Again, that's doctor-patient confidentiality. So keep that in mind. Definitely check out your employer's employee assistance program. Tell me about your Sunday Scaries. What do you deal with, right? Tell me how it shows up in your life. Tell me how you actually counterbalance it. What do you do on a Sunday or Saturday or Friday that gets your mind out of this doom spiral of depression and everything? Tell me what you actually do to fill your bucket and keep yourself in a positive frame of mind. If you like this type of content, I would absolutely be honored if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you are in a job where the Sunday Scaries don't exist, I wish you well, and I wish you continued success. If the Sunday Scaries do crop up once in a while, make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you're in a job where, hey, Rob, this is every week, I deal with this, I have all this, please get the help you need and talk to somebody. Definitely check out the employee assistance program. If you are in a job search right now, I know it's tough out there, but stay resilient and just keep at it. And hopefully that job search process will be as short as possible and you will get that job that you want and you deserve. So until next time, my name is Rob, and take care. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.